Altenberg in Germany. The DKB Ice Canal is stop 6 on the Wiesmann FIBT 4-man bobsleigh World Tour. And it's another grey and drizzly day here, close to the Czech border, at one of Germany's most historic ice sliding venues. Hello, everybody. I'm Martin Haven. Sitting alongside me is John Morgan. And John, since 1987, we've been coming here in World Cup racing, and the track just continues to develop, but the challenge remains for the drivers.
This track has always been, if not the most challenging track, one of the most challenging tracks. And this was highlights of the first run. Thomas Florschutz, who won the two-man last year on this event, and yesterday when they tied for the gold in the two-man. Not so good here in the four-man. Didn't get the great start. And he had the good draw of the #1 sled coming down. And he ends up in third place. I say he didn't do as well. He's still in a bronze medal position. But a little bit of a surprise. Oscar Melbardis, Team Melbardis. As expected, great start time. In fact, the best start time in Melbardis, who's just starting to learn how to drive four-mans. Not a bad ride down the track. I think he surprised himself. He was in second place, not far off of the leader, Max Arndt. Max, well, third best start time, but this young German pilot knows how to win. He won this event last year, and great lines down the track. He really bested everybody, and his 2400ths lead is a lot. Quarter of a second lead, but in Altenberg, a lot of things can happen, Martin.
Well, what we've seen this weekend, John, is that the rain has had a big effect on the track. Of course, rain melts ice, which means you have to have the refrigeration on hard, and that means the track does get a little frosty. Now, Max Arndt, the leader in the first round, but look at the battle behind. Second, down to 6, covered by a fraction over a tenth of a second. Czech Republic in there, Latvia in there, 3 German sleds, and Canada's Lyndon Rush. And of course, that means we're going to have an epic battle for the medal. French guy in the top 10, Loic Cossteg, France's first top 10 result in two-man in a decade, he posted yesterday. He could do the same here in four-man. We've got a lot of racing still to come here on this demanding ice track. And Christoph Langen there on the left-hand side, he is the start record holder. The start record set back in 1996. And Max Arndt on the right, last year's winner. Well, Arndt with a quarter-second lead is going to have to give this away, John. Perhaps the real tension is going to be whether the weather affects him or anybody else adversely.
Yeah, the weather, air temperature, you can see the ice. They try and keep that control steel is the runner they hang at the start, and your runners have to be within plus or minus 3 degrees of that runner. And the weather has played havoc all weekend. We've had rain and bobs and skeletons, but the best people have won. I will say that. All weekend long, the FIBT juries have done a fantastic job of making this equal playing grounds for everybody, but the weather has been ridiculous.
Now then, our start order for the second heat is the reverse of their performance in the first. So 17th in Heat 1, Michael Cerizet of Belgium will go off first, and the man who was on the top of the pile after the first heat will go 17th and last. So will the weather play a part? Only time can tell. And in the end, as you said, John, in every race, it has been the expected front runners that have been the front runners. So we've had wins for Germany. In fact, we had a double gold medal. Thomas Florschutz and the young junior world champion from Germany as well, Francesco Friedrich. They both won, tied to the 100th of a second in yesterday's two-man race. They're both from Altenberg, from this region of Saxony. So the crowd will be thrilled if Florschutz could make it a double win this weekend.
They do such a fantastic job here when the teams get to the finish. They play music from that team's country. I mean, you're going to see here Brian Adams for the Canadians. I mean, it's really, they do a fantastic job here in Saxony.
Top of the ice for Michael Cerizet of Belgium. You can see British coach Pete Gunn helping out with the sleds there. The Belgian team do not have spare bodies around to help. Sebastian Tuyet, Lino van Doorn, who was on the two-man sled yesterday, and Olivier van Balen are the crew. Cerizet had a very rocky ride first trip down this track, John. It looked 2 or 3 times like they were going to come off. See the scars there on the calf from the spikes of the man behind as they load. They've got to thread their legs around each other, and it's not always easy.
brakeman, Van Balen, he's new. I think we just did his headshot the other day. And again, you know, they got in. Look how quickly they're getting in and get down. This is an inexperienced team, push bars. And, you know, it's just great to have Cerise out here representing Belgium, and we talk about it. The 2-man trophy, the World Championship trophy, is named after Max Hubin, vice president of the FIBT and a silver medalist at the Olympics in '48. He lost his life in a bobsled accident. They named the 2-man trophy after him in 1951. And, you know, Belgium was one of the powers of the sport in the early years, so it's great to see Belgium back.
And a much tidier run as well, much less rocking and rolling.
Yeah, this is where it was rough. He was rough in the first heat there and here too, but one more curve I think he's got to worry about. He's through that pressure point of 11, 12, 13, 14.
Well, he indicated again in the first heat that 15 and 16 can be tricky. He gets that nicely tidied up.
More points, he'll finish in the top. You know, wow. 18 sleds, 17 sleds, he'll get points and move on. And Cerise has been on at every event. Yep. And again, it's great to see Belgium in the field.
And that is his best result of the season. Previously, it was 19th in Whistler. He now will finish no lower than 17th here.
And with this lesser field, some of these nations will take advantage. Look at this exit of Kreisel. That's not the way to do it. You're going to see hot sleds coming out of there pretty quick. Like a little bit of a slingshot effect on the bottom. And into this 11, 12, these two small corners. Here's the exit of Kreisel. A little airborne.
Yep.
Some of the pictures sometimes. Every picture tells a story, as that guy Rod Stewart says. And on this track especially. Look at the appreciation of the crowd.
Yeah, and we're going to see a lot of that in Berchtesgaden next week as well, in the huge crowd who really love their bobsledding. Well, next up, Patrice Savelle of Monaco. Elie Lefort was on the 2-man sled yesterday. He's added Seb Gattuso and Thibaut Desmartins. And this is a new sled to him. It's a German sled that he has not driven before in 4-man. And, John, you know what it's like when you get in a rental car and everything's in the wrong place. Imagine trying to drive it to centimeters tolerance.
Yeah, the push bar, the first run, the push bar was out the whole way down the track. And he had to deal with that. It was bent at the bottom. Patrice does better in 2-man, but he's had a rough season. He'll hopefully start to improve as he goes on to Codice next week, where he finished 4th at the World Championships in Codice. I think it was 2004-5.
Of course, what he's really missing is the big powerhouse of Lascelles Brown King behind him, which he's had to enjoy for the last 2 years and produce some great 2-man results as a legacy of that. But now
it's 2/10 down, and this is dangerous right here.
Yep.
Ooh, a lot of steering. When you see the 4-man steer like that, that means panic, because this is like Kaylee Humphrey said in the first heat. This is like a big bus coming down the track. It's unlike the 2-man, which is a sports car that you can get in and out of trouble. This big bus has got a mind of its own. The French, or Monaco, drops back.
Monaco behind the Belgians. So Michael Cerizet and his crew remain in the leader's box.
And Patrice is just gathering points, you know.
Well, it shows what sort of state they're in, that he's in a borrowed sled. He's clearly borrowed it from somebody here. It's not even an FES, it's an old Dresden sled. So he is trying to find a way of producing better results.
Look at this, look at the start. This guy almost slips getting in. He had a 6:05 start time.
Yeah, that was
that was that push bar. That push bar in the first run. They had a 6:05 start. In the first run, they had a 5:54 start, so they're 50 hundredths slower at the start. That's why he fell back a second. But here, look at the runner tips. This, I don't say it's panic, but there is a word to describe. When you see runner tips go like that on the exit of Kreisel, I'll guarantee he took a deep breath.
Big steer to catch that slide, and
Patrice, he's just
very disconsolate at the moment. You know, when you're having a run where, you know, fate just kicks you in the teeth, he's getting quite bored of it now. Well, Maciej Luti, the young Polish driver, the number 2 sled, turned 22. Turned 23, I beg your pardon, on the 1st of January. It's only his 2nd year as a driver. Gives away a little bit in time to his more experienced teammate David Kupchik at the start, but actually he's beaten him on a couple of occasions already this season.
5:50 in the first run, 5:48 in the second run. And he made he had a pretty good drive of the track up top here in the first run, but Exeter curve 9, made a mistake. Then down in Kreisel had a couple loops, and he was all over the place for the bottom part of the track. but he's got a full second lead on the Belgian team at the bottom. Now that's up to a $1:45.
He hasn't qualified for a second heat so far this season, so this is a first for him, getting a second run on race day.
This looks a lot like the first run.
Yep, pretty wild.
Going there up and down, the lines aren't consistent, and he comes out, oh, watch out here. He got through there, but he got through there with lots of steering. And when you steer, you slow it down. And of course, on Altenberg, I would think you want to steer quite a bit more than most tracks.
You don't want to leave it too long, as we saw yesterday in the women's race. 57.34 slide, 3/10 quicker on that run alone than the Belgians. So adding to his first round advantage that was exactly a second.
Look at the crowd out here, man. It's not nice.
Every vantage point despite the cold rain.
Cold, wet, I mean, it's muddy. It's not really winter, but it's like this all over Europe.
Hey, but John, you do what we do, get a Glühwein and a Wurst inside you, and you're good to go.
Yeah, look at the runners here. This is on this straightaway to 9. I mean, we talk about graveyards of time in the sport. On this track, the graveyard is on that straightaway from 9 into Kreisel. Those mistakes he's making in Kreisel now, they aren't made in the curve. They're made before he got to the Kreisel. This is down in 13, and it's almost, you can't watch. Look at this. It's almost airborne, the back of that sled, as he comes in there too late. But, I mean, it's not easy to get down this track.
Well, he looked pretty beat up after the first heat. He looks a lot better than the second run down. Again,
gather experience.
Exactly so. Dorian Grigore, Romania won this week, but his more experienced teammate Nicolai Estrate will be back in Bavaria next week for our next race at Koenigsegg. Estrate broke his wrist in a motorcycle accident in Lake Placid pre-season, so he will be back and hopefully fully fit.
Hey, we talk about the Belgians used to be, you know, in the sport successfully. The Romanians, they won their last World Championship medal in '69. And you know, they are out here at all the events.
2 Romanian women sled in yesterday's women's race. Both had very good runs.
Dragas Pentero, the FIBT Material Commission head, who's Romanian, he told me they just had the national championships for Romania over Christmas in Innsbruck. They had sleds, and they had 5, 6 4-mans, 7, 8 2-mans, women's competition, full skeleton. So these guys have paid attention to the development in the sport.
They're rediscovering their winter roots. 400s in front at the start, out to 700s, John. That is literally the blink of an eye, and it is now nothing.
Now the speed on the left. The lines here weren't too bad. The Polish, that's a rough exit of Kreisel, but he's got it up to 3. Now watch the head slap here. The transition, whoa, not bad.
1:16.8 for the Poles.
Yeah, he's pulling away.
1:18, he is pulling away.
Yeah, he had some rough line on that exit of Kreisel, but he didn't try and steer out of trouble. So, hey, this is a good young run here for him.
28-year-old Dorian Grigore.
That wasn't bad. I mean, it was a dead heat going into Kreisel.
Yeah.
He didn't have as many steers in the Kreisel as the Polish sled. He did hit hard coming out of the Kreisel, but he let it go. I mean, he took his medicine, hit, set himself up for 11 and 12, and then through 13 and 14. Look at it. Here's into the graveyard, as I call it. He's a little bit of a back end is getting away from him, but now he starts to go straight. This is where it was dead heat, even. Look at the lines here. Remember, the Polish went way up and down. The exit of Kreisel here, watch him hit the left tail wall hard. But look at the runners. Then he corrects, lets them go straight into 11-12. He took his medicine here.
But there's 2 dramas with going high in the Kreisel, John. First is it's a longer way round. The second, of course, is the frost right up there acts like a brake. In NASCAR, they say don't get out wide on the speedways into the grey, because there you hit the wall. Here, it doesn't have an accelerating effect. It slows you down. Next up is Milan Janešek of Slovakia. This guy is the arch enthusiast. He's a 43-year-old businessman from Bratislava who lives to slide.
Martin Tisovic, one of his crewmen, former European champion weightlifting, and one of the real well-respected athletes on tour. These guys are as friendly as anybody.
Best result so far, 18th place when we were in Whistler, round 3 of the World Cup Tour. Didn't do the last 2 World Cups before Christmas, but this could be his career high if he can hang on to this 13th spot, John.
Did have a very good first run. -5 to -3, but that's better speed than the Romanians. He gets here smooth. That's a very good exit. Up to 6. Ooh, that was late there, though. Watch the heads here.
Still quick.
Not bad. Runner tips. Coming at us. Nice speed. Similar to the Romanians. Going to be close, but I think he's going to be the leader.
Just about has it, and
12,
he does.
pulls
And
away.
that has got to be a career high. 13th place guaranteed.
Yeah, that's a... Milan will like that. And again, he made the race with the clean entry into 9 out of the graveyard and the exit of Kreisel. He was the best exit of the sled so far in this heat.
Listen to the crowd as well, cheering these guys at the bottom. They know what the smaller nations are up against.
11 and 12. Here he gets a little late. Forces, look at the number 2 guy's head way out of the
all
sled.
3 of them.
Yeah.
Gravity just
But now
drags
here,
them out.
but he corrects. Look at this. Look at these compelling pictures. Watch the sled climb late on the outlet of the curve is where you come off, and he's way past the outlet of the curve. But he gets through and down and gets spent some time in the leader's box, Milan. Congratulations.
As he did in yesterday's 2-man race as well, and again for the first time this season. Well, next up is Latvia's number 2 driver, Ugis Zalims, like Oskars Melbardis, who lies in the top 5 spots, started driving after being a brakeman in the Vancouver Olympics. So 2 years under his belt. This is season number 3 for this young Latvian.
Well, of the 17 sleds in the field, this one had the roughest ride in the first run. This was,
no kidding.
So put your seatbelts on. He's a new driver, Ugis Zalims. Great promise for him, but it's not about, right now, his placing's important, but I think his coach, Sandis Prusis, is more concerned about getting this young Latvian team to the bottom. These are much better lines.
Breathing much, will he, on this run?
Yeah, much better lines so far. I don't want to do the commentator jinx. Ooh, that was a hard hit.
But it straightened him up into the Kreisel. He's right on line.
Doesn't have the speed that the other couple sleds had, but he had the big start advantage. Late here, and he skips through there, almost doesn't take 12. Okay. And this is where he starts to get away from him.
Speed is way down, and John, that's because he's steering really carefully to make sure he doesn't wreck.
He's not concerned about speed. He's get this thing to the bottom, and he'll be the leader. Yeah. Milan knows that was a nice run.
57.11, 0.6 of a second slower than his really edge-of-the-seat first heat, because he was making damn sure he finished the race.
That was a clean run compared to the first run.
And that is a top 12 finish for a third-year pilot on a track as difficult as Altenberg. You can't sniff at that.
Listen to the music playing from they play the music of each nation's teams that come down. And here's 11, 12. It gets in here late into 11. Means he's got to really steer hard in 12, and the back end of the sled hits coming through there. He almost didn't even take 12. He went right to the straightaway.
Well, you can short straight it, but it doesn't feel comfy. Nevertheless, top 12, again, a career high, and we're going to see a few of those, I think, today. Next up, Dawid Kupczyk. He is Poland's veteran driver, started back in 1997. Whereas his teammate, Matthias Luthi, started in 2007.
Yeah, one of the first times I saw Kupczyk, young. They're all tall, thin track and field athletes.
They had 10th fastest start, John, 11th place after the first heat.
I expected Kupczyk to advance because the first time I saw him at the European Championships in Innsbruck, I think it was 99 or 2000, they posted a 10th place finish. And I went, wow, the Polish really got something here, young, but here 12, 13 years later, hasn't advanced that much.
Well, he suffered a series of hamstring and Achilles injuries for the mid part of this last decade, and that's really, I think he's still fighting the legacy of that.
Well, his coach, Martin, tells us that Poland had 43 two-man teams in the competition in the early 60s out on a track outside of Warsaw, a natural track. And so Poland, another nation, long-time member of the FIBT. You know, good lines, good alignment by the team. Look at the heads Can you see any heads and shoulders back there? Not bad. Number 4 guy's up a little bit. Causing some dirty air.
Top speed so far, 119 kilometers an hour, 74 miles an hour. That is the fastest run of the second heat.
That's a good run.
And that's just 0.04 of a second away from his first run. So 2 things, the track's holding up, still giving speed, and secondly, there's the experience of the driver compared to his young teammate who'll be, 4 or 5 tenths away on almost every run.
I think David will be happy with himself on that run.
Father Martin, also a big power athlete in his time.
These lines, the finish, the G-forces here. Look at the heads, look at the alignment. Number 2 a little bit out of line. Look who had the best speed into the finish.
Yep.
The most experienced pilots come down so far. Best speed in the finish.
Yep.
And boy, that means a lot coming down this track. You can find a little time on the bottom part of this track.
Look at Kupchik, you know where he comes from. He just picks up this sled without thinking twice about it.
The driver.
Yeah.
Usually the brakeman's doing that.
Yeah, the driver's the biggest guy in that team. Some of the fans we were chatting to yesterday. Next up, Loïc Kosterg. Top 10 finish for France yesterday in the 2-man from this 25-year-old pilot. And they're on target for a top 10 finish here in the 4-man as well. 10th after heat 1 off 9th best start. And like a lot of these teams, they're going to try and make hay while the sun shines, well, while the rain falls. And boom, off they go.
Another great. I mean, France was one of the original 5 nations in the FIBT, which the FIBT is celebrating its 90th anniversary. FIBT was formed. Oh, the push bar is out.
Push bar is out.
Oh, he's trying to get it in. The FIBT celebrating its 90th anniversary this year in November of 1923. They formed in Paris. And French were one of the 5 original nations. So it's good to see French out here.
0.02 of a second in front of David Kupchik. Little late exit, but he didn't flop too badly out of 9. Gets a decent run down the straight. Now, what about speed? 1:11.5. Kupchik had 1:12.
He was impressive yesterday in the 2-man competition.
1:12.1 on the exit, still a fraction slower than Kupchik, who was 1:19 at the bottom. 1,500s behind. Can he close? 1,800s behind.
Big speed.
Quicker than Kupchik. 3 corners to the line.
I don't know if it's going to be enough, though. Still a great finish for the French.
And, just outside of a top 10 finish.
Bruno Mejean knows this is a good work in progress. He can work with these kids.
Yeah, absolutely. They've got speed, they've got gumption. They're disappointed not to be first, but it's still not guaranteed that they'll be out of the top 10. Currently lying second with 9 to go in the sled built by their coach, Bruno Mejean.
This is a good young talent here, and it's great to see France, because there's been a few years since we've seen a Bruno Mejean.
Well, yeah, as a driver, exactly right, yes.
There hasn't been a lot of French activity, so this is great to see.
Yeah. Mejean's been coaching for a while.
The start, look at the feet coming down at the same time. Now watch the choreography on ice. Get in, 1, quick, down. The number 2 guy gets in, 3 has to wait for him. Arms come up and come down, and now the push bar stays out. And this is a little bit of, I mean, the driver doesn't know what's going on. He might feel some activity behind him, but sometimes those push bars can cause havoc. Look at the camaraderie.
Yep, absolutely. Well, we say that about this sport. You know, you're not racing each other. You are racing the track. There's nothing another team can do to ruin your life. It's just you. Next up, John Jackson of Great Britain, 9th place after the first heat. It's not been the greatest weekend for GB Bobsleigh. Paula Walker crashed out of a potential podium position in the women's race. Jacko's second heat yesterday dropped him back down the order. Henry Nwume, Jim Galvin joined the crew this weekend. Andy Matthews on the back. And this is the number 2 starting crew for Great Britain. 5:35 getaway in the first heat.
Come on now!
The power and athleticism of a 4-man bobsled start. Now the cohesiveness, the dryland training. This is an all-star crew, really. They just put these guys together. Look at the arms are still out.
Yeah, they're struggling to get in. Henry Nwume, who's got to be 6'5". He's a massive ex-rugby player and army doctor. Struggled to get in. The guys behind him trying to sizzle in as well.
Henry with 2 tours of Afghanistan. Good to see him back out. I have not seen him in a couple years.
And that's why he's been working with the troops out in Afghan. Well, these are good lines from Jackson. Great exit from 9. That's really important. He was 3/10 up on Kupchik from the first heat. That's all gone away.
He can catch him down here in the bottom. That's a good line there. Good slingshot, but not the time.
Hasn't got the speed either.
No.
1:19.6 required. That's what Kupchik had at the bottom. Again, good lines from Jackson, but is he working too hard on the steering?
He's going to fall back a couple places, maybe.
He's down to 3rd place at the moment.
Yeah,
Again,
3rd best
drift
time
away.
on the run.
Kupchik leads with 8 to go, and that means Loïc Costerg of France will get the top 10 finish that he wanted as Jacko slips out into 3rd place.
He had good lines. He had good lines out of 9, so runners, disappointment for Jacko, because when he's got that 18, he's been in the hunt at the start.
Well, the story there is he was 7/10 slower on the second heat than on the first.
Start times.
Yes, Henry. Jacko not looking happy. This will be a weekend to forget for Great Britain bobsleigh, but they're working hard towards the World Championships. Well, Simone Bertazzo of Italy, one of the biggest challenges for the Italian team is getting a big start. And John, this trio, Simone Fontano, Costantino Ughi and William Frulani, all rocked up this week, brand new brakemen. They didn't have the tidiest load, but they gave Bertazzo what he needed, which is the drive to get into the top 10, 8th after the first heat.
Look at the holes in the push bar. That's to get weight out of the sled. Teams gets in, gets down. It's not smooth. 5:40 start. But when they came for the headshots, the new guys, we went like, hey, there's some good-looking athletes here. They're tall, track and field backgrounds, and, you know, Simone, give him a start time. He's going to challenge anybody on any track on the planet. But his nemesis has been the consistency at the start. A lot of his guys have been hurt.
Himself last year as well, Achilles injury.
Oh, look at the speed. Watch these lines.
That's good.
Look at those lines. No runner movement.
Fastest.
Look at this. This is how to do it.
It's raining harder, and that's going to make the track more slippery. It makes the ice more difficult.
He makes
to
a
grip.
mistake. The commentator jinx.
Fastest speed again.
Yeah, 120 kilometers. That's what happens when you got a guy that's been down 1,000 times. He's been in this track for 12 years, 10, 12 years competing. 56, 49.
Antonio Tartaglia on the left and Wolfgang Stampfer on the right, who builds the sled and coaches the drivers. They're pretty happy with that. Top 8 finish for the Italians. It's going to be not just a season high this year, but
brand new
maybe
crew
for several.
Hey, brand new guys.
Yep.
You know, rookies. You know, breaking people in.
12th place in Whistler, his best result so far this year. They're going to be no worse than 8th.
Look at the lines here at Kreisel. This got away from him a little bit of couple steers there. Watch the exit. Watch the runner tips here. This is where he makes a mistake on the exit of 14. Not what you want to do with a 4-man. Is touch it from left to right wall, be sideways like that. Good run, but he lost 20 hundredths there at least.
Simone Bertazzo of Italy then, your race leader with 7 to go from David Kupchik and Loïc Costerg, all in the top 10, Italy, Poland and France. So to Austria, Jürgen Loacker. He had a really smooth run. He's very similar to Bertazzo. Great touch, really good feel for the ice, but needs a start.
One of the best pilots in the competition.
13th at the start, John. 7th at the bottom. That's how good a driver he is.
In, gets down. Ooh, that's one of the guys pushed off a little hard there, and as they came out of the start grooves, the sled wavered. Speed at 48.2 kilometer speed. You want to be up there high 49s. That's the speed trap after the first curve. That's relative not only to the start time, but how you get in the sled and get down.
Well, this is a chance for Bertazzo to move up because Loacker is not having a good second run so far.
Austrians don't seem to have good second runs. Notice that out of the girls too.
That's
they have great
broad
one runs.
Statement there, ladies and gentlemen.
There's always something about their second runs. If it was a one-heat race, I think they'd have better results.
And the Austrian women
now the
had
question
their best ever result yesterday with a 7th spot finish.
You know, he's got great speed, almost 121 kilometer speed. He's going to fall behind Simone Bertazzo and his young Italian crew.
Bertazzo's run, 56.49. Had he done that in the first heat, he'd have been tied for 3rd. So Simone Battazzo may be in the leader's box a while yet.
Well, you can also say that the track's got some time left in it, even with these adverse weather
Look
conditions.
out our window, and there's really gusting rain now as opposed to drizzle.
Let's watch to see if the sled comes out of the grooves and goes to the right, go to the little skid here to the right. Look at it, see that? As soon as they come out of the groove, so a little bit of movement there.
Well, they also started a tenth of a second slower, and that doesn't help.
Look, now watch him go over to
Still got a smile on
He's
his
going to go over there and give a high five to Simone. Watch this.
These two are brothers in arms, aren't they?
You know how many times those two have done that?
Yeah.
In over 10 years? I mean, wonderful to watch this camaraderie that this sport presents.
365 days ago this day, Lyndon Rush and his teammates were concerned about Chris Spring and Canada 2, who had a big crash here in training for the 4-man race. As a result, Canada didn't race here last year, but all the crew survived the accident, returned, and Chris Spring is training up for the next race in Bavaria. Lyndon, top 6 after the first heat.
5:26 start. It's Eurotech sled in, down, very nice, 5:27. Listen to speed on the left. We should get high 49. There it is, expected. Lyndon wavered a little bit in the first run. Wasn't clean, couple places. That wasn't a good exit there of 3 into Omega here.
John, he's the first of 5 sleds from 6th to 2nd, covered by just 1300ths of a second. He could take a medal here easily.
He could move up. He did not have a great first run. This isn't good. Look at a lot of unstable as he came down that graveyard of time on this track. But
top speed,
3200ths. Runner tips, a lot better than Bertazzo. 121.3. Well, that's great speed. So
75.5 miles an hour from the Eurotech sled. He
fastest time of the run. That would have been a medal run right there. That'll put him in the top 2.
That would have put him in the top 2, exactly, yeah. Some 1800ths off the first round, fastest heat now. The question is, will the track continue to produce speed? Will it get slower?
They did their job.
As more water goes on the ice, it becomes harder to control the sled's skids.
Hey, what we know is we've got a fair race coming up. Here's the exit. I think it's up 2 to 3.
Yeah.
And here's into the graveyard of time. Look at this. Brian Adams playing at the bottom.
Watch the spray coming up from the runners. That's not ice, that's water now.
But you know, he did play with those runner tips and get that sled straight into the Kreisel.
But the sleds will slide more and longer as more water goes on the ice. So it's a challenge now for the Germans, who swept the podium in yesterday's 2-man race, to try and do the same in the 4-man. Manuel Mahata, Germany 3, who was 5th after the first heat. Just 400ths ahead of Lyndon Rush, our current leader.
There's the green light.
A minute of quiet contemplation for the driver before the explosion.
5:28 start. Not a bad start in the first run. Look at him get down. Number 2 is the last guy has to sit out. 5:28. Look at the speed. 49.8, 49.6. Now that's not as good a speed as Lyndon Rush had, but Lyndon Rush had a 100th better start. But again, the start speed's relative to how you get in the sled, get her settled, get around that first curve. Boy, he's got 400ths to 1500ths. Boy, he really drove the top 2 or 3 corners really good. Now remember, Lyndon Rush made a big mistake up in curve 3. And that's why Mahata is just pulling away here.
2 kilometers.
Big speed.
Huge speed. Mahata's one of the best 4-man drivers on the planet.
This might be a run for the medals right here. But he's
Absolutely.
one of the highest lines in 13 we've seen. Boy, is he fast. First guy in 122 kilometers.
76 miles an hour.
Whoa, Manuel. Where was this in the first run? Whoa.
In his back pocket, waiting for where it matters.
You think
Christoph
Meister?
Langen, the start record holder, multiple winner on this track, likes that run. Manny Mahata, and John, you know, sometimes you forget his first ever World Cup 4-man race was at Whistler in Canada 2 seasons ago. He beat everyone on the planet to take the gold medal. This kid can drive a 4-man like a dream.
Well, he didn't have a very good first run, but Manny, I think you did it there. good start. 5:28 in the first run, 5:28 in the second run. Look at the feet coming down. Ooh, the back end came out. You see that?
Yes, it did.
So that's the brakeman lifting it up.
Christian
Great
Poser,
pictures from our crew. See those guys sitting in the front seat of the TV truck? They're experts themselves.
Yes,
you notice
they
that?
are.
Look at the speed. Blew everybody away.
By 2 Ks.
Afterburners on the bottom part of the track from that German.
Of course, he goes home to Koenigsegg next week, where he'll be even more dangerous.
Might be the best heat of the year for him, right there.
But now, talk about best heat of the year. We're into the top 4. This is Jan Verber of the Czech Republic.
What?
Wow! What a day he could be having here. Dominik Sushi, Jan Stoklasta, and Michal Vacek. Previously unheralded heights for the Czechs.
Biggest heat of his career. He just had the biggest heat of his career in the first run.
Well, they started 5:30, 6th quickest start, 5:29.
Speed in the left.
Astonishing.
49.6, the same as Mahada. And Mahada put the pedal to the metal.
They are starting as fast as the German crews, and he's driving superbly.
-3 to -3, that's not good. That tap there, it's probably going to be red numbers at the next clock, but he's still a top 5. This guy would be unbelievable. Those are good lines. Yeah, he lost a lot of time, 2 kilometers down. He's going to fall behind Mahada. The question is, how many sleds is he going to fall back? Good lines down here will give him his personal best.
Really good speed as well. Only Mahata has gone quicker.
Personal best. That's what you try and do every time you come to a bob track.
121 kilometers an hour. Again, really stonking speeds.
Yeah, might drop back at least 1 spot. Still.
He is in second place.
So,
wow.
Congratulations to the Czechs.
Guaranteed a top 5 finish.
Look at them. You know how many
it.
years those guys have been down in 15th and 20th? Congratulations to the Czech Republic.
We've seen
That's
many
awesome.
days when they've struggled to make the cut.
Let's see what they say to themselves here. Come on, guys. Lighten up. It's your best finish ever.
Here's his season. He's done 4 World Cup races, 14th, 17th, 20th, 5th.
Come on, Jan.
Wow.
And the starts. This is it. You got to have a start time to compete. The Czech Republic have finally come out with 4 great athletes.
Yep.
Look at the, really obviously some summer dryland training. Look at the height into the finish curve. Doesn't have the speeds of Mahada or Rush, but Jan Verber, this is a good positive sign.
What a day for Jan Verber.
Of course, this is their home track.
It is. We're only about an hour from Prague, the capital of the Czech Republic. But Jan Verber, well, he always has a smile on his face. But this is guaranteed a top 5 finish for the Czech Republic. Now then, winner yesterday in the 2-man and last year in the 2-man. Bronze medal last year in the 4-man when he tore his right leg and ended his season. Can Thomas Florschutz improve on 3rd place after the first heat?
Start is going to be so important. 5:16.
Wow,
this could be 50-kilometer speed. There it is. It won't be the last time we see that. Big men sitting in this sled. And look at him. You can barely see him back there. Look how low Florschutz sits in the sled. Half of his visor's covered. Perfect aerodynamic presence, but boy, driving it into the wall, doesn't matter how good your aerodynamics are. He made the mistake up there at the top. 112, that's not the 113 speed we've seen. Mahado flew down the track. That's not a 1. I mean, Florschutz isn't bad, but this tells you how good Mahado was. I don't think he's going to do it.
No, he hasn't got the speed. It's going to be down to a few hundredths of a second. Is he going to be able to pull it back? No, surely not. Mahata moves up, but he stays in front of the Czech Republic.
The best run that Manuel Mahada had this season was the run he just took down this Altenberg track, and that put him in medal position.
They know it. Bobsledders with umbrellas doesn't look right, but the celebration is definitely there for all to see.
Not happy.
Well, you wouldn't be. He's let it slip out of his grasp.
And it's a Saxon crowd, and he's driving a Saxon green color sled.
Well, he's in second. Still 2 sleds to go. He may take a medal.
He's got that attitude. Second is the first place behind the winner.
Well, you know the attitude. Look, they started 5:16. That's the single fastest start we've seen all day. It was win or nothing for them.
Unbelievable start. But his mistake, he made that hit out of curve 3. And that really brought him back to the field. And Mahata, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Here's up top. Look at this tap. This is it. Look at that tap. That's what took all that start speed away, and that's why he's in second. That mistake right there, he eliminates that mistake, he's the winner, or he's the leader.
Crestfallen Thomas Florschutz. Manuel Mahata leads for Germany. 2 sleds to go. Now, Oscars Melbardis, already a medal winner in World Cup racing. Could he take the big step to the top of the podium in only his 3rd career season as a driver? Taped up brakeman Intars Dambis. That's very temporary, isn't it?
That's weird. I don't wonder why that tape's there. Unless he's got some kind of rib problem.
He tore his suit, maybe. It's just to hold it together, stop it flapping.
560. Let's watch their speed. If it's over 50. 50. See, it's not as good a speed as the Germans. They didn't have as good an entry into the sled. Even though the Germans and the Latvians tied at the start, they didn't have as good an entry. We'll see how much that affects them. Now, here's where Florschutz made his mistake coming up. Right here. Yeah, not bad. He's got a huge lead.
27 hunts
but
on
this track,
Manuel Mahata.
You can give back a quarter of a second on this track. He just gave back 600ths. Exit. Look for the runner tips here.
He was only 900ths up on Mahata from the first heat.
Oh,
now he's only
lost
600ths up. Manny is moving into the silver medal position as we watch the Latvian slip.
Oh, now he's going to question it. How far back is he going to fall?
He's down to 3rd already. He is behind Florschutz. We could still get the German clean sweep. It's going to happen. He's in 3rd spot behind Mahata and Florschutz.
Wow.
Dare to believe Mahata and his crew are thinking they may get gold.
Melbardis just chalks that up to experience. He gets a little bit more driving under his belt in these 4-man sleds. He'll be okay. But again, his team did not have the speed at exit of curve 1.
Wasn't the tidiest load.
No, and that's the, you can push fast. But look at the rudder tips here. This is at 13, 14. Look at the rudder tips. He's on the wrong side. And he's got a little bit of back-end skid going. And now you see the runner. Look at him start to play to get away from that wall. He wants to get over to the left side of our screen. Look at him. He knows. He's looking at the replay.
But the great thing for Florschutz and his crew is that they match these guys in the start. That's a phenomenal achievement. Now then, gold or go home. Max Arndt for Germany. Won last year's 4-man race in Altenberg in driving snow. Can he do it now in driving rain? Marco Hubenbecker, Alex Rödinger and Martin Putzer are the crew. There are your leaders on the left, Manny Mahata and his crew. Germany 1 and 2. We're going to get a German winner. And John Morgan, we're going to get a new first-time winner for this season. Because Alexander Zubkov and Bernd Hefty, who've won so far this year in 4-man, are not here. Wow, the tension.
Okay, we know the numbers. He's got to get about a 5:19, 5:20.
They started 5:20 in the first heat, 5:19.
Now it's 50 flat. 50 flat.
50.
There's the speed. Now, he had as good a line as anybody driving down the track, and he won this event last year. So Max Arndt, I think, can smell a gold medal.
He was 4,200 up. It's 45.
He didn't tap. He didn't tap there like we saw Florschutz.
3 to 4 wasn't great.
Yeah, this
9.
is speed, 113, 112. Ooh, doesn't have the big speed.
It should be enough.
Yeah, rudder tips here. Watch this exit. Slingshot right there. 11 and 12. Textbook.
Speed is coming.
Ooh, that was high there.
2/10 up. Florschutz down at the
12.
bottom.
We've got a race. This still could be Mahata. It's close.
12/100ths of a second. Oh my goodness, he wins it by 6/100ths of a second from Manuel Mahata. But what a race Mahata gave him to take the silver medal from 5th after the first heat. Oh, Arndt buries his head in the cowl in delight. Yes, he hung on. He knows it wasn't his greatest run. 56.05 was a 3/4 second loss on his first run. That's exactly what happened to Kathleen Martini, and she won the women's race yesterday. 3/4 of a second slower in the second heat than the first. But he had enough advantage over Mahata to hang on. Victory and the gold medal for the first time this year for a German driver in 4-man bobsleigh. This is World Cup number 6. I can't believe I'm even saying that sentence. Max Arndt, the giant Marco Hubenbecker there on the right, Alex Rödinger, and Martin Putzer there. That is a lot of raw beef, and they win by 0.06 of a second. Germany first, second and third as they were in the two-man race. Well, it all started with a big getaway. 5.19, the second fastest start of the competition, behind the two 5.16s set by their rivals, Thomas Florschutz and Oskars Melbardis. Christoph Langen on the right, very happy with that. A sweep in two-man, a sweep in four-man, and a 1-2 in the women's race. German bobsledding finally scoring some medals in this World Cup season. Max Arndt, Mani Mahata, barely a hair's breadth between them. Thomas Florschutz in third as he was last year. Melbardis, what a day for Jan Verber in fifth position. Simone Batach and Jürgen Loacker, seventh and eighth. And Loïc Kosteg, top 10 again for France, 2 days in a row. Some big days here in Altenberg for those drivers. We'll hear from them after this.
Und Altenberg ist sowieso unsere Favorite-Strecke, vor allen Dingen mit den Männern hier an der Bahn. Der Ralf Mende mit seinem Team wieder super Arbeit gemacht. War einfach ein schönes Rennen und ja.
Wie seid ihr mit der Strömung zurechtgekommen, außer Kurve 9?
Ja, müsste der Pilot was zu sagen.
Ja, danke. Applaus nochmal, Martin Putzer. Schaffen wir es noch ganz schnell? Interview? So, wen haben wir noch? Die Jungs hier. Erzähl doch mal. Stimmt eigentlich das Gerücht, dass ihr euch im ersten Lauf ein bisschen zurückgenommen habt, damit er hier länger in der Liederfrost feiern kann?
Selbstverständlich, ich muss mit Manu reden, der hat ein bisschen Blödsinn gemacht, aber er ist ja sehr fangen.
Ja, manchmal muss man hinten einfach mal ein bisschen zutreten, oder?
Ja, wir konnten leider nicht mehr am Start gehen. Wir müssen ja eigentlich mehr unterstützen, aber super. Alles gemacht. Vielen Dank euch allen. Alles klar.
So. Er gibt uns ein Signal, wenn wir uns ein Bild geben sollen. So, alle werden erwartet. Wir machen gleich die Flowers, die Interviews. John Morgan, der die gleich macht für das internationale Bild.
The damp in Altenberg at the DKB Ice Canal has not dampened the enthusiasm of this fervent crowd here, as they have seen Germany's Max Arndt not only take the gold medal for the first time this season, but take the lead of the World Cup rankings. Manuel Mahata moves up to third place, as he also finishes on the podium in silver medal place, just 0.06 of a second behind in what was an epically close finale to round 6 of the FIBT Wiesmann 4-man Bobsleigh World Cup. Well, it started with a huge getaway from Max Arndt and his crew. They knew the pressure was on from behind. And Arndt, well, a little flaky ride through corner 9, but he controlled it. The gap dropped, though, from 0.45 to 0.06 by the line. Arndt breathing a sigh of relief as he came in to claim the gold. Well, let's get down and find out what they thought of it with John Morgan.
And the flower ceremony down here in Altenberg in Saxony. Rainer Jacobus, the vice president of the German Federation. Andreas Trautberger, the president of the German Federation. He's also the president of the German, or the vice president of the FIBT, giving away the flowers here appropriately to 3 German teams in a great bobsled race like we usually get here in Altenberg. And congratulations to all the Germans. What a battle here. Thomas Florschutz, last year, though, in this 4-man race, you injured it. So today, a bronze medal.
Ja, Gut, ich bin jetzt Dritter geworden. So richtig glücklich bin ich nicht, weil ich eigentlich mit keinem der beiden Läufe zufrieden sein kann. Es hat trotzdem noch für Platz 3 gereicht. Das heißt also, wir haben viel Potenzial nach oben. Das macht mich zuversichtlich.
He's very happy with the third place. You know, tough competition here in Altenberg, and bronze medal. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now over to second place to team Manuel Mahata. I said I was doing commentary. Your best drive of the season in the second run.
Yeah, probably was probably the quickest turn in the second heat. So probably we got 3 or 4 tenths to the other teams. It was amazing, and we're really happy about that. So next race he'll try to do that in the first 2.
You guys had a little fun in the leaders box, huh? Congratulations, good silver medal. Now, Team Maximum Art, Max, last year you win here. This year again, the first time you win the season. 2 good runs.
Ja, ich sag mal, der erste war sehr, sehr gut, der ist uns gut gelungen. Im zweiten haben die Jungs oben nochmal ordentlich Ballett gemacht. Es war sehr wichtig für uns, auch der erste Sieg. War ein bisschen schwere Wetterbedingungen, wenn es so langsam wird, ist es einfach nicht mehr ganz so meine Bahn. Aber ich bin sehr zufrieden, wir sind glücklich und können jetzt erstmal zum nächsten Rennen schauen.
Congratulations. He says he was much better in the first heat than the second heat. The weather was very challenging for all the teams. And hey, he's got a gold medal. You're very happy. Congratulations, Deutschland.
And looking forward to moving on to the next race, which is also in Germany, but that will be the home track favourite, Manuel Mahata, who'll be looking for the gold medal. Well, for John Morgan and the whole FIBT TV crew here in Altenberg, I'm Martin Haven saying thank you for watching us. Join us next time in Koenigsee, Bavaria for more sliding action from the Wiesmann FIBT World Cup. And don't forget, you can relive all the action and find out more about the sport, the crew, and its highlights on FIBTTV.com. Okay, we'll be doing some wild lines for Universal in a second, so please remain recording. Okay, so I'll just get myself ready for this. So hopefully still recording in California. Yeah. Okay. Stay with us for more bobsleigh action on Universal Sports. There's more bobsleigh coming up on Universal.